Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Look, I need to tell you something that's going to sound completely insane at first, but if you actually hear me out, this will change everything about how you approach your goals. Most people are failing not because they're lazy or unmotivated, they're failing because they're doing way too much. And nobody wants to admit this because it sounds backwards, but stay with me. Before we get into this, I'm pushing hard to hit 1,000 subscribers, and your support genuinely makes all the difference. If this is hitting for you, just tap that subscribe button real quick. So here's what's actually happening that nobody talks about. Everyone's obsessed with addition, adding more skills, more projects, more connections, more strategies, more content, more everything. They think the answer to not getting results is doing more things. But that's exactly backwards. The answer is almost always doing fewer things with way more intensity and focus. I see this pattern everywhere. Someone starts with a clear goal, maybe building a business, creating content, developing a valuable skill. They're excited and focused initially, then slowly, almost invisibly, other things creep in. A side project that sounds interesting, a collaboration someone pitches, a course everyone's talking about, another networking opportunity, and 6 months later they're completely scattered, exhausted, and have nothing substantial to show for it. The fundamental problem is that your time and energy are fixed resources. When you spread them across 10 different priorities, each one gets 10% of your capacity. Even if you execute perfectly, which you won't because context switching destroys productivity, you're getting 10% results across the board. That's not a strategy for success, and that's a strategy for permanent mediocrity. Now compare that to someone who's ruthlessly selective. They identify the one or two activities that actually create exponential returns. Everything else gets eliminated or reduced to the absolute bare minimum. They're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They're just concentrated instead of scattered. And that concentration produces results that scattered effort can never match. Here's where this gets really uncomfortable. Most of what you're doing right now doesn't actually matter. Not in some philosophical sense, in a concrete, measurable sense. It's not contributing to your main goal. It's not moving you forward. It's just activity that makes you feel busy. And because busy feels like productivity, we confuse the two constantly. Let me give you a real example. You spend 2 hours at a networking event. You meet people, exchange contacts, have good conversations. Feels productive, right? But 3 months later, nothing tangible came from it. 0 results. Those 2 hours could have gone into deep work on your actual priority. That wasn't networking. That was socializing disguised as productivity. Or you sign up for an online course because everyone says it's valuable. You watch a few modules, take some notes, feel like you're learning, but you never implement anything. The course sits unfinished. That's not education. That's consumption disguised as progress. The people actually winning aren't consuming more information. They're implementing obsessively on fewer things. This is why the entire productivity industry doesn't want you hearing this message. There's no money in telling people to do less. They need you believing you require their app, their system, their framework to manage all these competing priorities. But the real solution isn't better management of chaos. It's elimination of the chaos itself. You don't need to optimize 17 things. You need to cut 14 of them completely. When I finally did an honest audit of my time, it was genuinely shocking. I looked at my calendar from the previous month. Meetings, calls, projects, commitments everywhere. Then I asked one brutal question for each activity. Did this directly contribute to my main goal? The answer was no for probably 70 or 80% of it. I was voluntarily giving away most of my productive capacity to things that fundamentally didn't matter. So I started cutting aggressively and without mercy. Meetings that didn't need to happen got canceled. Projects that weren't essential got dropped. Commitments that were just obligations got declined. And people were genuinely upset about it. They were used to my availability. They expected immediate responses. They thought their agenda should be my priority. I had to disappoint them. And here's the part nobody warns you about. The first few weeks feel absolutely terrible. You feel guilty saying no. You worry you're burning bridges and missing opportunities. You second guess every decision. But that discomfort is actually proof you're doing something right. You're breaking patterns that weren't serving you. Most people can't handle that discomfort, so they retreat back to comfortable busyness. But if you actually push through that initial resistance, something remarkable happens. Your output quality skyrockets because you're finally working in sustained focus states instead of constant fragmentation. Your stress drops dramatically because you're not juggling 15 things poorly. Your confidence increases because you're making visible, measurable progress instead of just staying perpetually busy. There's also a deeper psychological thing happening here. Staying scattered across multiple priorities feels safer than going all in on one thing, because if you're doing 10 things and one fails, you've still got 9 others. But if you concentrate everything on one thing and it doesn't work, you've got nothing. That fear keeps people diversified across mediocre pursuits instead of concentrated on something meaningful. But the actual risk math is completely backwards. Scattered effort across 10 things guarantees mediocre results on all of them. You'll never develop real expertise. You'll never build real momentum. You'll never create anything exceptional. Concentrated effort on 1 or 2 high-leverage activities gives you a legitimate shot at breakthrough results. The perceived safety of diversification is actually the riskiest approach possible. Now let's talk about implementation, because this isn't abstract theory. You start by identifying your highest leverage activity, the thing that creates the most value with the least input. For some people, it's creating content. For others, it's direct sales. For others, it's building a specific technical skill. But it's almost never 10 things. It's 1, maybe 2 maximum. Then you build your entire schedule around protecting time for that priority, not squeezing it in between other things, building everything else around it. You batch your communication instead of responding constantly throughout the day. You decline meetings that don't directly serve your goal. You stop consuming content that's just entertainment disguised as professional development. You cut commitments that sounded good but aren't actually essential. And this absolutely requires disappointing people. Your family might not understand why you're temporarily less available. Your friends might feel neglected. Your colleagues might get frustrated that you're not as responsive. You have to make peace with that temporary discomfort, because the alternative is permanent mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. Here's another angle most people completely miss. When you eliminate aggressively, you create space for genuine deep work. Not just focused time, but sustained concentration on complex problems. This is where real value gets created. But deep work is impossible when you're constantly interrupted, constantly switching contexts, constantly responding to other people's priorities instead of your own. The people who figure this out early have a compounding advantage that seems almost unfair. While everyone else is dabbling across multiple areas, they're developing genuine mastery in one. While everyone else is accessible and reactive, they're focused and proactive. While everyone else is busy, they're effective. The gap widens every single week, every single month. I know some of you are thinking this sounds extreme or unbalanced, like I'm advocating for neglecting important areas of life. My response is simple. What you're doing now isn't working. The balanced approach, where you try to make incremental progress everywhere simultaneously, is keeping you stuck. Sometimes extreme focus for a defined period is exactly what's needed to break through. And this isn't a permanent state. Once you've built real momentum in your priority area, once you've created something substantial, you can expand your focus again. But most people never give themselves permission to go all in long enough to see what becomes possible. They stay diversified, stay scattered, stay stuck. Then they wonder why others seem to progress so much faster. So here's what I actually want you to do. Write down everything you're currently trying to accomplish. Every project, every goal, every commitment, every responsibility. Get it all out on paper. Then ask yourself with complete brutal honesty, what's the one thing that if I accomplished it would make everything else easier or irrelevant? That's your priority. Now look at everything else on that list. For each item, ask 3 questions. Can this be eliminated entirely? Can this be delegated to someone else? Can this be postponed until after I've made substantial progress on my main priority? Be absolutely ruthless here. Most of what you're doing doesn't actually matter. You're just doing it out of habit, obligation, or fear. The world doesn't reward scattered effort. It rewards concentrated excellence. And the fastest way to build something excellent is to remove everything that's not essential and pour all your energy into what remains. It's uncomfortable. It requires hard choices. It means disappointing people temporarily, but it's also the only path I've consistently seen produce breakthrough results. Stop trying to balance everything and start dominating one thing.